Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Irish Wrestling Podcast. My name is Mark O'Brien, and today I'm joined by somebody incredibly special. It's gone by a number of different names. Some people may have known him from his early days as Cody Vincent. Some people know him as Pedro Perigloso. Some people even know him as Vanilla. Some people might know him just as a number called 10, but to me, he's still Preston Vance. I'm joined here now today. How are you today, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm flying it, having a really good day. So thanks very much for joining us.
Man, I forgot about all the names. The Cody Vincent one was like a one-time thing. I did like a tryout or like an extra match with the NXT, and they gave me Cody Vincent, even though the back of my trunk said Vance.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, you do a bit of digging and this kind of stuff, and all these different names start popping up. Yeah, no, listen, you're a guy who's been kind of integral to the whole story of AEW more than anything. So many different stories and kind of really milestone events that happened in the kind of really in the inception years of AEW. For a lot of us who really fell in love with the promotion and a lot of stuff that you were doing, particularly around COVID. Like I'm here in Ireland, and our restrictions at the time were literally you cannot leave your house.
yeah.
So you had very little to do outside of working in your bedroom and while you're working, watching wrestling on your iPhone or a screen while you're trying to pretend to work. And you were involved in so many kind of seminal moments, particularly around that kind of 2020, 2021 time frame, which is the main reason I wanted to talk to you. Because as somebody who's been a fan of you from very, very far away, and kind of all the work you've done in AEW, I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
No worries. Listen, so you've had a kind of an interesting journey, I'd call it, in terms of coming to AEW. You'd started it in kind of the Northeast wrestling scene, working from, say, the Monster Factory and various independents around there. Then you migrated south towards the Nightmare Factory, and then before you know it, right at the turn of the COVID year in 2020, January 1st, I believe it was, AEW debut, team with Sean Spears against the Guns, building Austin, not Colton, rather. And then the next thing you
Yep.
know, we're in a lockdown, and suddenly the world's over. What was that kind of whirlwind experience like for you from kind of, I don't know, being from wrestling in the Monster Factory in the Northeast, then to the Nightmare Factory, and now
Yeah.
suddenly you're on AEW and television, and then in lockdown?
Um, yeah. So okay, I'll start from the beginning. So I've like everyone, they say they've always wanted to be do this their whole life, which is true for me as well. I was always a fan. When I was 8 years old, I actually wrote an essay for school that I want to be a pro wrestler on TV, and all my friends are writing like doctor, like pro football player, hockey player. I was like, no, I want to be a pro wrestler on TV. And my favorite wrestler of all time was Billy Gunn. And the amount of times I'd get sent to the principal's office for doing the suck it thing
Mm,
was quite a bit. So then I went to college. Was always still a fan of it, obviously, but didn't know how to get into it because it's such a crazy world. And then my senior year of college, I researched every school literally in the country. I had stacks of papers. And, for every good school, there's quite a few bad ones that will just take your money and you don't learn anything. So I got in contact with Danny Cage, who's the owner of the Monster Factory. And I had my college graduation like during an open tryout or like to see if it's something you want to do. And I was like, man, she's gonna be pissed if I miss my college graduation. But so I called her, and then she's like, yeah, maybe like push it back. But I'm like, I don't think I can push it back. So I called Danny, and he told me something I'll never forget. He said, if someone offered you 2 tickets to the Super Bowl that same weekend, you would take them. I'm like, yeah, of course. And he goes, well, in the long run, like this one weekend could mean way more than a Super Bowl. So I'm like, that's right. So I call my mom. I'm like, I'm not walking to graduation. I already graduated. I got my degree. So it's like, who cares about walking? So I took my last exam in college, packed up I drove a little black Mustang at the time, packed everything I could fit in there, like trash bags and stuff, and just moved to New Jersey. I had no place to live. I had no money. I didn't know anyone. So I lived out of my car for 3 months, like legit was like homeless, like in a parking lot, and was miserable. And I would lie to my mom and be like, I have a place to stay, because if I didn't, she would have freaked out. But I had enough money for a gym membership and like groceries. And so I basically lived in a Snap Fitness gym parking lot. And at 2, 3 in the morning, I'd go in the bathroom and I would cook all my chicken on like a George Foreman grill in the bathroom because it was 24 hours and that's when no one was there. And because I was so embarrassed, I was homeless.
yeah.
And but I was at the gym so much they finally offered me a job at that gym. So now I'm doing indie wrestling on the side, and then working at the gym. Learning at the Monster Factory. I met some awesome people. QT Marshall was
Mm,
the first person who I really connected with that very first weekend. But then shortly after that, or maybe it was shortly before that, he broke his neck and needed neck surgery. So
mm.
then he disappeared. So now I'm like, dude, you're like the whole reason. You're the one who convinced me to move here, basically. But then Damian Priest was also a coach there at that time, who me and him just, I mean, he plays such a huge role in my career. Him and QT both are the most influential people in my career, especially from the early days. And Damien told me, because at this point he's quite a bit older than me. So
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was telling me, he's like, he's like, I'll never make it, but my whole goal is I want you to make it and I want to be a part in your story. And now he made it,
Yeah,
blew
yeah,
up. And then I had a tryout with NXT in 2017. And then 2 weeks before the tryout, I tore my ACL
oh shit.
and was bummed. So I moved back home for like 9 months, got the surgery there. And then in that time, QT had opened a school in Atlanta. And he called me. He's like, hey, when you get cleared, I'd love to, like, he's like, don't give up on this, wrestling thing. Come to Atlanta. You can, live with me and my wife until you get on your feet. So I got cleared, moved to Atlanta basically the next day after I had gotten cleared to get in the ring. Started training there. And then in 2019, had another tryout with NXT and tore my other ACL 2 weeks before
Ah,
that. So I'm just like, it really messes with your head, man.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm like, holy shit, maybe. But I did the surgery there in Atlanta, stayed there, was still around wrestling 24/7 QT, made sure I was mentally okay. And then in 2019 was kind of like the talks of AEW. And at that point, Cody would come around to the school quite a bit. And I think he may have just did like he was rehabbing some sort of small injury, I remember. But so I'd see him all the time, and me and him became friends rather quickly because he was, became friends with QT, and then AEW, fully started. And I never asked Cody about AEW, and I really talked to him about it because I'm not gonna,
yeah,
hey,
yeah,
I'm your friend, get me a job.
yeah,
So
yeah,
he told QT, he's like, how come Vance never asks about AEW? And he's like, well, he's not going to ask. Like, he's your friend because he's your friend, not because of who you are.
yeah,
And then so AEW started, and then January 1st of 2020,
yeah.
I teamed with Spears and wrestled Billy in Austin. At that point, I wasn't signed. That was basically a let's see what Austin has type match. So that was for Austin to get signed.
Yeah.
So I think he got signed right after that, right as soon as he came through, and he was like, "Dude, thank you so much." And now me and him are, I mean, he's my best friend on the roster. We live in the same condo building, so it's kind of a cool full circle moment. And then the pandemic hit, and I remember I was in Michigan, and QT called me, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to come to like one of the tapings to do like a tryout match."
Mm.
And my mom's like, it's COVID, like all this stuff. I'm like, I'm getting on that fucking plane. So I got on a plane from Detroit to Jacksonville, and I was the only passenger on the whole plane.
Mm.
And so I get there, I do one match, get to the back, they're like, it's awesome. And then the next tapings were in Atlanta at QT School, where we filmed like 6 weeks of TV in like 2 days.
Mhm.
And that's where I had met Brody.
Mhm.
And so Brody walks in, and I was like, this is awesome. Because I was a big fan of, Wyatt
Yeah,
family and
yeah.
all that stuff. And so Brody walks in, and we instantly just clicked. And he told me about his family and his kids. And we talked about, like, our favorite drink is Tito's. And we talked about, he played hockey, I played hockey. So we really clicked. And then he went to Cody and QT and was like, hey, does this guy have like a thing with WWE coming up? And they're like, no. And they're like, why isn't he signed? And then it's like, I don't know. So Brody went to Tony and was like, put him with me. I'll take him under my wing at,
Mm.
backstage and on screen, like kind of like my like white knight is what he'd always call me. So that's how I got signed to AEW.
That's awesome. Like, the amount of people that you've just listed off there, like four really big personalities are kind of
Yeah,
in your
because a
corner. Yeah.
lot of people,
Yeah.
think that I was reading some articles online about myself, and people think that I like Brody was my uncle or there's
Mm.
some family ties. Like I just met him.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we just really clicked. And then obviously after he'd passed, I just stay in contact with his family a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's
that was awesome. I mean, before I touch on that, like people you kind of listed off there, you've got that Damian Priest, that then Punishment Martinez, then you've got
yep,
QT Marshall, then you've got Cody Rhodes, and you've got Brody Lee. So that kind of says an awful lot about you, the fact that all these different massive personalities in the space of wrestling gravitating towards you, and they've got put a huge amount of stock and effort and thought
yeah.
into you. The fact that they're willingly offering you places, some of them places in their homes to live with their
Yeah, so
family, like
another
that's awesome.
another thing I really live by is Ray Lloyd. He also he trained me a little bit in Atlanta Glacier, and he
Yeah.
told me it doesn't matter who you know, but it matters who's willing to say they know you.
Mm.
So like something I'll get asked a lot of guys who are trying to make it in wrestling, like what's like the best advice you can give, and I always say, for one, like be in shape, and then two, just be a good person,
Yeah.
because it's wrestling is such an odd industry, and you can get some big egos and stuff in there, and I just never have had one. And I grew up in a really, really small town. I mean, I grew up on a dirt road. Neighbors were Amish. So like I grew up like very blue collar. So no
Yeah.
one has an ego there because you didn't
Yeah.
come from anything,
Yeah.
like I come from a town where nobody ever leaves.
Yeah.
And, I did, which I'm glad I grew up that way because it does keep you from having an ego at all.
Yeah. So I live by kind of a phrase where like, reputation is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So the
Yep.
fact that
Yep.
people are kind of going out of their way, probably without you knowing, even the fact that when you're lurking around a gym making chicken in a bathroom at 3 in the morning, they think
Yeah.
enough for you to offer you a job. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I was researching there, like you're actually only like 2 and a bit weeks older than me. So I'm born 2nd of February 1992. So
Oh,
I saw
nice.
that and I was like, oh, okay, this guy's a similar age, similar background. Like I was even the amount of things you've gone through and health wise and
Yeah.
injury wise. Like I've had 11 surgeries out of a broken neck from playing rugby.
Wow.
That's hence why I look about 20 years older than you then. But anyway, but I mean, like the amount you went through there in terms of two massive knee injuries,
Yeah.
two ACLs. I've had two ACLs in both legs as well.
Yeah.
Just various different. How much of a mind fuck was that? Like 2 weeks before your different tryouts,
It was it
suddenly
was
like because
it was
it's complete. You
hard.
can't do anything, man. Like it's completely out of your hands, and that's
Yeah.
the next like 9 months of your life gone.
Yeah, and like it was both times I was so close to making it,
Yeah.
and it's weird. They both happened the exact same day, 2 years apart, both March
Mm,
2nd. So
yeah.
now I'm like, man, that's like my cursed day. And but yeah, it really is a mind fuck because I was so close to making it and then didn't. But now looking back, I'm glad I didn't because I wouldn't
Mm,
have had, I wouldn't because if I did it and say I made it there, who knows where I'd be. And I wouldn't have met all these people through AEW and now with AEW, which I love, working for AEW. And then when I got signed to AEW, 3 days later, I had torn my bicep
yeah.
after I signed the contract.
Yeah.
And man, I was so scared because at that point, I was on like a per appearance deal. So I instantly was like, I'm fired. Like they saw me wrestle one time. And I remember calling Cody and Brody and like legit in tears. Like I remember seeing Brody the next week at TV and I saw him like in the hallway. And I first thing I said to him, I said, I'm so sorry I fucked up. Because I'm like, you put your stamp of approval on me. You didn't know me from anybody really.
Mm,
And then he told me, he's like, you're young, you're jacked, you're good looking, you'll be fine. And gave me a hug. And then I was like, damn, I will be fine. And then, I was. And then we did the whole, to get me off TV, we did me versus Moxley, where he broke my arm on TV. And then
yeah.
I just would come out with Brody on stage in his white cloak and stuff.
Yeah, like there's another saying. I'm dropping a couple of cliches here now, but what this I'm from Scotland originally. There's saying, "What is for you won't go by you." So like even
Mm-hmm.
though those opportunities with WWE in terms of those tryouts at the time, like they went past you, but then what you managed to achieve then in the early years of AEW in the kind of prominent role, the relationships you managed to build with Cody, QT Marshall, Brody Lee,
Yeah.
obviously that real kind of seminal time and Brody Lee's kind of short stint with AEW, and you being such a featured part of that. What was that like? Because like even from appearing on like being the elite and the Brody Lee segments back then to obviously to like his untimely death and whatnot, like that whole arc in that time frame, like how much did that mean to you and how much did that develop you in that time? Because it was a very, very short space of time. You were almost going from 0 to 100 with you and your kind of your fans' awareness of you and also your development.
Yeah. So we like to call that the golden days of AEW. And as much as it sucked because we were wrestling only in Jacksonville every single
Yeah.
week, man, the locker room was so close because we were forced to be. Like we would go to the arena and then we'd go to the hotel and we could only hang out with each other. So the camaraderie in the locker room at that time was so incredibly high, and we would like literally were a family, and especially the Dark Order guys, who I'm still obviously very close with,
Hmm.
and Hangman, and doing the BTE stuff. I mean, I don't know if I've ever had that much fun in my life. Like it was so just like go do whatever you want. And we had all day at the arena to like kind of fuck around um and it was great, but we like that was my first TV contract. So you get into wrestling and you assume like you're going to be on the road and doing all this stuff, and now I was like, damn, you're just going to the same place. So we were all getting pretty stir crazy.
Mm,
Um but also like but then when we got back on the road, it was fun. But we even to this day, we all talk about like, man, those Jacksonville days were the best. And at that point I was living in Atlanta, so I drive down to Jacksonville every other week to film. And then now, now I live in Jacksonville. I was so sick of being there for the whole pandemic, and now I moved here.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I think it was a great way to develop, my career in like because when you go to TV, you might as well you're starting your whole career over basically because people if they don't follow your indies, they have no idea who you are. So it's kind of like a good start from like level zero basically.
Yeah, and like, at that time, kind of, I was touching on that kind of Brody Lee time frame. Obviously, it built up towards and the Brody Lee Memorial Show, and your colleague from the Nightmare Factory, Alan Angels. I remember vividly sitting in a bedroom watching on my phone again, Irish time difference the following morning, catching up in AEW, and the role yourself and Alan played that day in that Memorial Show in terms of looking after a young family, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of on screen and off screen, like that from afar, you can even say like that those are men that they're doing
Mm-hmm.
something incredibly good. That's something that not a lot of people would be able to or would do.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's something that'll stand to you no matter where you go in life. And I
Yeah,
huge respect to you for that, sir.
thank you.
And obviously it's something you've kind of carried on since having that kind of relationship since then. But yeah, like even I remember reading recently just around that the injuries you did have at that time again, that torn bicep injury, you're about to launch into a tag team with your colleague Alan Angels. I didn't realize
Uh,
that Five and Dimes thing was a thing until I was like, surely this isn't. Sure, I'd have heard about this before, but no, that was something even reading now would have been incredibly intriguing. Was that ever discussed about revisiting at a later point?
um, yeah, we were going to, and then they kind of made me like more of the singles guy of the group,
Mm,
which I loved.
yeah,
And then yeah, when Brody had passed, it was like I remember seeing his Amanda, his wife, and then little Brody backstage, and I was just in normal clothes, and so well, especially the kid, he doesn't know what I look like without that mask on.
yeah.
And I walked by him a million times through the day, and then finally when it was time to wrestle, before one of the shows, I had my stuff, and I remember he looked at his mom and he goes, "Mom, that's 10," And then at that point, it was just like, I mean, he was just no matter where he was, he wanted me there. And I was like, I loved that because he felt like safe with me and not really knowing me. But I remember talking to Amanda, and I guess it's the way, uh, you know, uh, Big Brody would speak about me at home. And, you see on TV, like you're kind of, on TV, I was kind of his dad's like right hand man. And, he at that point, Brody was only 8 years old. So he doesn't really know the like real difference. So I think he just kind of assumed, which I love that I was able to be there for him. When he passed, I know obviously it was super hard on him, and he'd FaceTime me. I mean, probably like 10 times a day at some days. And I'd always answer. And then as time went on, I'd hear from him less and less.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was like, that's a good thing because he's healing,
yeah, of course.
And I still talk to him all the time. I mean, we still do the we call it Brody Day every year. We take him to Disney.
Uh,
There's the same group, and me and him, our birthdays are very close, so it's
fair.
kind of like a joint celebration of me and him. But he's a good kid. He's 13 now. He's going to be tall like his dad, so
Okay.
he's doing good.
Be a 21-year-old now in a few years going to Disneyland with a lot of grown wrestlers. Yeah.
I always joke with him. I'm like, okay, dude, on your 21st birthday, I'm in charge of the planning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
not going back to Disney.
Don't expect this every year. Yeah, yeah. No, that's really really cool, man. Like, listen, as I said, that's something that like worldwide, the amount of kudos and acclaim you would have gotten for that. So listen, thank you very very much for all doing that as a fan from afar. But you then kind of launched into, I suppose, in the story of Hangman almost, and you're again
Yep.
part of some of the biggest stories and
Yeah.
moments in that AEW time frame. Like what sticks out to my mind, one of the best things I think I've ever seen in wrestling. I'm not really sure why. I can't put a finger on it in terms of was the Dark Order and Hangman versus the Elite in terms of they come out and do the Space Jam entrance, you guys come out and
Yeah.
the Hangman kind of cowboy, like what is a
Yeah.
cowboy entrance, and the slowly reveal the different white lights and building to a crescendo,
Yep.
like the new guy standing in the ring, like that's goosebumps. I'm a 33-year-old man and I've got goosebumps here now. It's like
Yeah.
that's wrestling in a nutshell. And again, it's you show that to anybody else, they'd be like, "That's fucking weird." But like, it's one of the coolest.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. But like that whole arc, that whole journey, what was that like then? Kind of pivoting from what was an incredibly sad time to something that was very joyous.
Yeah, it was awesome. I love Hangman. He's an awesome dude. And yeah, I remember when we were like rehearsing the entrance, and I was like, "Yo, this is gonna be cool." And then when we did it, and it came out on TV, and Twitter was just blowing up about it. Like, this is like the best entrance in wrestling history. I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Really?" And then I watched it, because they had like the whole video package of Hangman, like with the walk, like it was his cowboy boots, and then it's like the lights, and I was like, "Damn, they our production team killed it because
Yeah.
we looked fucking awesome, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, and it was cool too to be able to even be in the same storyline as guys like Kenny and the Young Bucks, you know, like I mean they're without them there's no AEW, you know what I mean? So it was I loved it. I still every time I see Hangman at work, both have big smiles on our faces. So it was it was a good time because after something so dark that had happened,
Yeah.
it was like we even came together more and like really like that group of guys like me and Uno and Stu and Silver and Reynolds and Hangman is like legit we're like brothers, you know.
Yeah.
So it was cool. Yeah, I watch that entrance sometimes still today, and I'm like, damn, we killed
Yeah,
it.
there's certain things in wrestling you go back watch 100 times over and you're never not like fuck that's pretty cool. But
Yeah,
like that whole period, like you kind of you call the Jacksonville days the golden age of AEW. I'd say the next like for me the next 2 years probably onwards, including that story through 2022, that kind of 3 year period I think was the golden age of AEW. Like again, it's only a couple of years ago, but it's a bit
yeah,
cynical calling that now. But you're a huge part of that. And you all got to flesh out your different personalities, even to the point when Hangman was making his entrance against Kenny Omega in that kind of
yeah,
big build-up moment. You can see all the Dark Order guys running towards the Target Center. You hear John Silver yapping like a chihuahua in the background.
yeah,
Like that was really cool. And seeing all, even though you're part of a collective group, you all had your own distinct personalities, even though you're
yeah.
under a mask. Like,
Hmm.
and then you kind of were then launched as the breakout star of that group in terms of
Yep,
you then pivoted into something I don't think anybody would have pretty much anticipated. You've then launched into working with LFI and Roosh,
yep.
Jose, Dralistico, and those guys. How did that come about?
So this was one Andrade was still with AEW, and
Mm,
I guess he saw me walking backstage and was like, "I want Preston." So then he did the same thing that Brody had did, and I guess went to Tony and I talked to Tony a while before that, and I remember him asking me about like if I want to keep the mask, and I never wanted to wear a mask. I never did. I never wore it on the indies, and for one, because I wanted to show my face, and for two,
mm,
it's hard, to really connect with fans.
mm,
When you lose this, it's like it's hard to you can't show emotion. Yes, it's all
mm.
body language. It was a great learning experience because it taught me how to show emotion with not just your face.
Yeah.
So then then I talked to Andrade about it, and I was like, yeah, I think that would be great for my career. So I don't think anyone sees me turning heel,
Hmm.
ever. Especially after Brody passing, me being so close with his kid, and the kid he was little Brody was so in on it, and he was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
this is cool. So then I had the idea like I wanted him to be out there and part of it, and I want to throw the mask at his feet, like to really like staple like this
yeah,
is
yeah,
this is fucking over. And that's one of my favorite moments in my career, just because the crowd reaction and
yeah,
seeing like I remember on TV how they filmed it. There was they panned to some woman in the audience and she was crying, and I'm like, oh, that's fucking awesome, And then the hate, I was getting so much hate on Twitter,
yeah.
and I loved it. I was like, this is great. And I didn't get to really work with Andrade that much because by the time I
Mm,
joined, he was kind of on his way out.
hmm.
I've always I always got along with him. I don't know him that well. So then it was just Roosh, and I didn't know Roosh really at all. And man, me and him, we became. I mean, he always tells me he's like to me, you're Mexican forever. I'm like, okay. So he's the man. He really 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 looked out for me in a lot of different ways. Working with him was great because he's so intense. So it would bring that intensity out of me. And kind of, I had to almost like reteach myself how to show emotion with my face. I got so used to not worrying about it. And that's all him, he's so intense. And I love his style. It's like very similar to mine, like just like not flashy, just beat the shit out of people. Working with him was great. And then we filmed those cool vignettes in Mexico,
Yeah,
which was awesome. That was my first time ever in Mexico. And we were in like, not like destination resort Mexico. We were in fucking
yeah,
Mexico.
yeah, yeah.
So there was a few instances where I was like, this is kind of sketchy. But I mean, I love doing that stuff, and he's a very passionate person about
Mm,
wrestling. Like he wants everything to be perfect, which is awesome. I loved working with him. I mean, honestly, one of my favorite matches I've had, if not my most favorite, was me and him versus Moxley and Claudio, the Texas
mm,
Tornado match,
yeah,
where me and Mox are both gushing, and uh, I love that, and I love work. Moxley, I will always say, is my favorite opponent in AEW, just because we have like
yeah,
man, we wrestled a few times now. And, we
yeah, yeah.
really lay it in there, and we get to the back, and dude, he's he like is the one who like really brings out the best in me in the ring, which is I love. But I loved working with Roosh. I loved with LFI. It was another challenge in that though. Dralisico, he's great. His English isn't that well, so when I was tagging with him, it did make it. It was a big challenge to be able to communicate without knowing each other's language, and I picked up a little bit of Spanish here and there, just hanging around those guys all the time. But it was hard, but it was like a good challenge, and like I loved it. I have nothing but respect for those guys. Like they're Jalisco and Roosh both are just fucking awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome, and even down to your gear in terms of that kind of pinstripe suit and kind of style you had as well. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seemed to fit like a glove. Even the kind of presentation or the Tron or whatever they kind of did do in AEW, like everything fit seamlessly. And then having Jose, the assistant, kind of as that kind of conduit between the three of you as well. I thought it was a really cool presentation, and I really liked how as soon as you kind of you kind of turned heel and kind of aligned with those guys, you got the kind of the big star treatment, and then you're having to sit down on TV with Jim Ross.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like that, like even that opportunity, like then to as you touched on a minute ago, with those vignettes you did down in Mexico, they felt like big high production.
Yeah,
Right, that
yeah,
there was a huge amount of equity and time and effort and thought gone into that.
yeah. We
With
were in Mexico for like I think 14 days filming stuff. And then the Jim Ross thing was awesome because
yeah,
we're the same age, so like as a kid,
yeah,
he
yeah,
was like the man. He's the
yeah, yeah.
voice of my whole childhood. And so yeah, to do that little sit down with him, I was like, oh wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. And like again, like the amount of sit downs he's had in AEW, be it with like CM Punk and one or two other people, there hasn't been that many actually. There's been
Right.
a lot of other commentators have had sit downs with other people, but the Jim Ross treatment is kind of a different level as well.
Yeah.
And again, like as a fan of yours, I was like, fuck shit, yeah, okay, we're gonna be launching to the moon here now. So like just out of morbid curiosity more than so you had all these really cool moments as part of LFI. So you've had your like Battle of the Melts match with Orange Cassidy. You've had done a lot of cool stuff like the likes of Ricky Starks. You've done stuff. You had one particular match on Rampage when you're against a luchador. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he tore his mask off after the match. I thought it was one of the
Oh
coolest
yeah,
things.
he was like a local guy. Yeah, that was like
Yeah,
my debut
yeah,
match with LFI. Like go out there,
yeah,
fucking lay it in, and I was like, I'm like, I'm gonna rip his mask off because
yeah,
that's like the most disrespect you can do to a
yeah.
luchador. So I was like, oh, I'm doing it.
But I was after the match, you kind of swung it around as well, and you're kind
Yeah,
of did a
yeah,
bit more swag and like, yeah, fuck, I'm
yeah.
feeling this kind of thing. Like, where did things not go wrong, but like, how did things kind of dissipate in terms of that kind of high you guys were at? Like in AEW, there's a million and one different
Mhm.
factors and different acts going on. How did that kind of not fall through the cracks? Because later on, you then see Roosh is then somehow teaming with the Don Callis family at the same time being
Mhm.
aligned with you guys, and then having that match with you last year then in Dallas with the two V's, which was amazing, by the way. But like,
Yeah.
how did it kind of pivot from one piece to then to another? Like, what happened in that kind of interim period, be it backstage or what?
I'll be honest, I don't even have an answer. I have no idea. Roosh doesn't know. It just, yeah, that is one thing. I don't even want to say bitter because I'm not
Mm,
bitter because I think everything happens for a reason, but
yeah,
I'm confused on why it was so short lived because I feel like we were getting some steam.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. But like I said, like, everything does happen for a reason. So I'm not mad about it. I'm not bitter about it.
yeah,
Just more like, I don't have the answers.
yeah.
Um, and I don't know if I'll ever get them. So, but I'm still very thankful for that time working with him.
Mm.
I've kind of like stole some stuff from Roosh, like just how he does stuff in the ring, and so is a great. I take everything as a learning experience.
100%. And now there's a kind of a rebranded LFI of late, then like with Beast Mortos and Dralistico. Like
Yeah,
I personally would love to see you back involved in that kind of that angle,
yeah,
some shape or form. As quickly as something can be dropped, it can be picked up again just as easily.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I know you've got a lot of cool stuff going on in the minute. Like obviously in the 2024, you very consciously put it publicly. You're gonna say, I'm going to be investing more time in ring and we investing more time in terms of going back to the independents.
Mhm.
How's that kind of journey been throughout 2024? Obviously, you kind of moved over then specifically to the Ring of Honor brand back in like September of last year.
Yep,
Those at the same time, then spending your weekends going to more and more independent shows. How's
yeah.
that learning curve been? Kind of taking a step back
Um,
and such.
I like it because it's
Yeah,
like you can't just become complacent, no matter where you're at.
yeah,
So with the Ring of Honor thing, I was just like, man, like, okay, if you don't have a spot for me on TV this week or right now, like I just want to wrestle. Like I want to do
yeah,
something. I'd rather do something than just sit at home. So I was kind of floating around Ring of Honor, doing like single stuff there, whatever, and then the group got kind of presented to me of like the new
mm,
thing I'm in now, the Frat House,
yeah, yeah,
and man, we're having fun. I
Yeah.
love it because as much as I loved the Dark Order and LFI and everything I've done, like those characters and that's just not me.
Yeah.
I always was kind of the heater, like the
Yeah.
heater,
Yeah.
quiet of the group. Like that's not me at all. So,
Yeah.
and QT and like a lot of guys backstage, they know me as a person, so they know that's not me. And so this kind of got presented, and I love the guys in my group. I've known Griff forever, and I've known Jack Jameson since he started. I just kind of met Cole through AEW, but he's a good kid, young, good looking,
Yeah.
and I'm like, man, even just aesthetic wise, we look fucking awesome, and it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of our idea for the group. Now just
Mm.
go out there and be yourself. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is because I am in my 30s, but I do still kind of act like a college kid. I never like really grew up. So it's kind of like, so if I were to describe the group and like my thing now, it's almost like for American football, if you took
Yeah. Yeah.
like Rob Gronkowski and Johnny Manziel and had a baby, and that's like,
Okay.
all right, go be yourself and be like this big like, you know, fun like party dude. And that's just, I'm like, okay, this is what I fucking want. I can finally just be myself. And when you're yourself, turn up to 10, that's when the best stuff comes out. It's hard to, as much as I love being LFI, it's like, man, I'm not like, I'm not Spanish, so it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so it was like I was kind of the odd man out in a cool way, but also like this is much more my thing is like just go be yourself.
Yeah. Like, I mean, in my 20s, I spent the entire time chasing a rugby dream and just like being a meathead, whatever. So when I see kind of a group of lads who are just like
Yeah,
essentially four jocks put together, like yeah, fucking
yeah,
that's what wrestling should be. You should be all be fucking jocks, and the fact that it's the four, do you know what I mean? You should all be fucking going to the gym. And you got four
yeah,
jack dudes together who are just like being meatheads and having fun. Like
yeah.
it comes across authentically on TV, and
And
it's
people and
working out
people
brilliantly.
love that, dude.
Yeah,
Especially Americans, like they love. Like I mean, I love watching. Like I love Rob Gronkowski. He's my favorite athlete ever
yeah,
because he's just like he's good at what he does, but he doesn't take it too seriously. Like it's like, man, you have such a cool. We have cool careers and cool jobs and cool lives, and it's like you can't be like that angry, upset all the time. Like this shit's fun, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So like have fun.
Yeah, I mean, even like if you're playing like again like an NFL for you guys or rugby or whatever, like you're not going to be running around a pitch like big angry face the whole time. You're going to be
Right,
laughing and joking and having fun.
right.
Like you put a that you hit somebody and like you're going to stand over and laugh at them or something. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be
Yep, yep,
serious. I'm going to kill you the
yeah,
entire time, tense the whole time. So no, it comes across brilliantly. And like your run on Ring of Honor so far has been really, really cool. Like even coming down to like having pure rules matches where you had
yeah,
like for the pure
yeah,
championship against Lee Moriarty and showing more strings to your bow in that front. Like you seem
yeah.
to be really flourishing. And do you have what are your kind of hopes in terms of the group? Because it does feel like kind of four different entities have kind of been put together. Because like say
Mhm.
Jack Jameson's coming from his Iron Savages stuff. Cole Carter's been done a number of different things.
Yeah,
Griff Garrison as well. He's coming from even doing stuff with the now Lexus King. So there's a
yeah.
lot of different parties kind of coming together at once. Do you see yourself, or do you have any goals specifically for the group in 2025?
Um, yeah, I think I think we have a lot of legs with it. Like there's no ceiling to it, and it's
Mm,
like the reins are definitely lengthened on this one.
brilliant.
So I mean, and they're all we have a group chat, and we're
Mm,
all just like firing ideas all day. So we have a lot of cool ideas coming up, and not even just for like wrestling, but like for like entrances and merchandise. And it's like I think it's stuff people can really get behind because if this is a group where you can be super interactive with the crowd
mm,
and it works. You know what I mean? And that's like, everyone wants, like, as a fan, like, you all want to be, interact with the wrestlers. Like, when I was a kid, I wanted to,
yeah,
even
yeah,
if I hated them or I liked them. Uh, so I think just grow as a team because, none of us have worked together before as far as like tags and stuff. Me and Griff
yeah.
did a little bit. So it's just kind of learning everybody's style and like how they do things. But the best part is backstage. We all get
Mm.
along fucking awesome, which is a huge help. So I'm very excited about it. I think we can do some cool stuff, and at the very least, like we're already having a blast doing it, and we already want to start taking a bunch of indies together. We just did one last
Yeah.
weekend in Atlanta at Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. So yeah, we want to do everything together, which is cool. We all have the same in real life like hobbies, and we all go to the gym, and so it's
Mm.
like hold each other accountable for that. So yeah, I think this is going to be like a very fun part of my career.
Yeah, it seems to be really fun. Like, even from following your social media, suddenly a man who's 33 is going to bars and clubbing with a couple of guys in their 20s. So fair
Yeah,
play. That does sound like fun. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
No, but even you touched on earlier, like you've kind of you're growing this kind of social media platform as well, and I think that kind of lends very well to what you're doing in a minute and kind of
yeah.
flourishing and showing off your kind of personality. So I'm very hopeful for yourself. Obviously, I'm hoping that Ring of Honor primarily gets a television deal sooner or later because there's been a huge
Mhm.
amount of emphasis put back onto Ring of Honor lately, and it's been brilliant to see, even down to the fact that their Global Wars branded show. So hopefully off the back, if they get a television deal for Ring of Honor soon, you'll be featured prominently across that television program. We can see the four of you then featuring on AEW programming once again soon. Um, do you have any specific goals, like on a personal level, for this year, the coming years? Like, do you have any aspirations? I know you've talked about previously, like your dream within AEW is to hold the TNT title. Do you have any other specific goals you're looking or landmarks you're working towards?
Yeah, I mean, with the social media thing I started, it was kind of like doing it for fun, and
Yeah.
I'm having a blast doing it. I have one of my friends down here. He does video editing, and he'll like basically have a camera in front of my face no matter what we do, whether it's we go to the batting cages or we go to the bar. And it's just like it's because I started originally as doing like this gym, like I want to do like a gym review, kind of how Barstool Sports does like the pizza reviews. So I'm like, I'm gonna do the gym review thing, but then I'm like, but then you're only gonna captivate the fitness audience. And then if you just do wrestling now, you're only captivating the wrestling. So I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to be like a lifestyle thing because I'm blessed enough to be able to do a lot of pretty cool stuff in life where it's like people can almost live vicariously through you. So and then it's kind of a domino effect, and these people will start reaching out to you like, hey, like we think you should do this or this.
Mm,
So it's kind of I'm kind of want to use this to get more eyes on me outside of wrestling fans.
yeah.
Kind of just like for I hate using this term like social media influencer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but those you get some eyes on you. And I do eventually I would love to do like legit like acting and stuff like that because who wouldn't.
Mm,
And as wrestlers you already kind of have that in you with like the background. So yeah, I think with wrestling the main goal is to do more AEW programming like
mm,
consistently,
mm-hmm.
but also not stress a bunch, not like have that just eat you alive and just simply have fun because that's when your best work comes out and that's when all the other stuff will fall into place. Um, and then outside of wrestling, keep doing like social media stuff and eventually, try to do something in the LA, the Los Angeles realm and to see where it goes.
No, listen, you're 100% right doing that. Like, I think there's too much of wrestling generally kind of caters to a niche audience. And I think the fact that you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to spread your wings. So again, that people use terrible phraseology. They say things like casual fans and all that kind of stuff. But like,
Yeah.
it's not just casual fans. You're trying to spread your own kind of your own brand, your own value
Yep.
and trying to grow. That's just common sense. And I think not enough people are doing that. And I think if
Yeah.
more people did
And
that, they'd be better
and
off.
that's what it is too. It's like you develop your own brand, and now it's like people who are your fans of wrestling are now going to follow your
Hmm.
other endeavors, and then people who aren't wrestling fans who know you from say if you get on a TV show or from like I recently started getting into like fitness modeling and like stuff like that. So now
Yeah.
people from that world like, oh wow, he's a pro wrestler. Now I'm going to watch wrestling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the crossovers is like great for both sides. So you can bring people who know nothing about wrestling into that world, and people who know nothing about what you're doing, like the wrestling fans, will be like, well, I'm going to watch him do whatever he's in.
Yeah.
So it's there's really like there's no ceiling to it, and we have such like a good platform already where it's like I feel like a lot of people in wrestling just don't take
Mm,
advantage of it as much as they should.
hmm. I think particularly I would this is a personal opinion now, particularly kind of younger wrestlers. I think a lot of younger talents you see on television tend to cater towards what certain cohorts of fans are looking for in terms of be it match styles or presentation and whatnot, or they're trying to mimic elder talents. So then
Mm-hmm.
you can often see this across programming. I find anyway, there's be very little variation in presentation. And it can be sometimes wrestling can have a lack of freshness, is what I call it. Like
Yeah,
so for yourself, if there's a backstage environment where people are like arguing to have you on television or somebody else having those additional eyeballs, that additional brand value can only help your argument to get you back on television to that I would view
of
anyway.
course.
And when I watch AEW, I love AEW more than any other wrestling products. It's what I watch. But I badly wish a lot of the time I want something fresh. I don't want some things from almost 20 plus years ago sometimes.
Sure.
I want new what AEW was at a certain point. It was everything
Hmm.
felt new, dynamic, raw, fresh, where
Hmm.
sometimes it can feel a bit formulaic. Like the stuff you're doing with LFI felt the furthest thing from formulaic. It
Yeah.
felt rugged, it felt real, it felt intense, and you're like, shit, that's wrestling. Like do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you can do it in a different spin, what you guys are doing within Ring of Honor in terms of the frat house. That feels
Yeah.
authentic. That feels
Yeah.
different. That feels, yeah, authentic is the best word because that's what people actually
Right.
behave like in real life.
And
So,
that's what we want too. And that's
yeah,
another reason why I started doing like the social media stuff. Because before it's like, man, I can't be posting all this like, oh, I'm having fun and partying and working out and being goofy, and now I'm part of like like now I got to be serious. Like it doesn't
yeah,
work. So that's why it's like, man, for the love of God, just let me be myself. Because it makes people will like you more because, like you said, when you're truly authentic and you're being yourself, you don't have to, you're not tricking anybody.
hmm,
They're gonna fall in love with you or they're gonna hate you, but it's gonna be real. It's
yeah.
not gonna be like they're not gonna feel like they're getting played.
I'm gonna sound like somebody's an idiot here now, but I think there's not enough wrestlers on TV who look like they could beat the shit out of you, and I think
Yeah,
I'm just gonna
I
say
always
that.
say that too.
Yeah, and I want somebody. I want to watch wrestlers that people are like gonna fucking fuck somebody up. Same reason why you watch UFC heavyweights. Same reason why you
Yep,
watch boxing heavyweights because you want to see people make an impact. The same reason you watch NFL or rugby or
yep,
other high contact sports because you want to see. But like, what's that cringe? What that wrestling phrase or the man Big E? Big meaty men slapping meat. That
yep.
kind of thing. You want to see people make an impact and getting stuck into each other. So no, listen, I'll be championing you across all different various different channels. I think I don't see there's any reason why you and the guys you're kind of currently partnered up with can't be featured significantly more.
Yeah,
Like it's funny you mentioned Austin and Colton, or Austin being one of your best friends in
yeah,
AEW. He's one of my favorite wrestlers on the planet, just
yeah,
in terms of he's authentic, but also
yeah.
like he gets it in terms of what he does in ring, and he turns his own personality up to 11, and he's an
Oh,
athlete. He's like a proper athlete as well.
his personality's at 11, no matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
That's him, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you talked about being with the frat house now. Like, I could actually picture you being with the guns or something. So that kind of
Yeah, yeah,
similar kind of
yeah,
cohort as well.
yeah.
No, but listen, Preston, you've been hugely generous with your time. And before you go, I was wanted to touch on something that was pretty cool. I actually wasn't aware about before I started researching to have a conversation with you. You have Crohn's disease,
Hmm.
and you've been able to curate such an incredible career while kind of going through that. So like, that's a huge kudos to you. Like, have you been battling that through your whole life, or is it something
Yeah.
you developed later on?
So I got diagnosed when I was 10 years old, and it's actually something I would keep hidden for a while.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I don't know why, because when I got diagnosed with it, so I was in hospitals, in and out of hospitals like crazy
Mm,
to try to figure out what's wrong with me. I was always sick. My blood levels were always off. And so I was always going to the University of Michigan Hospital, which is
mm,
which is where I grew up. Like, I mean, multiple times a week. And then they finally figured out what was wrong with me. And at that, I was so young, I didn't know anything about the disease, neither did my mom, but when you hear the word disease, especially at that
mm,
age, it really fucked with your head. And I remember what fucked my head the most was seeing my mom like break down in tears.
mm.
And so now I'm like, oh my God, like that's what the fuck is going on with me?
Yeah.
So for like the first till I was 16, I was taking like 14 pills a day, and it was so hard, especially as a kid. You just want to be a kid,
Yeah.
and they weren't really working. And then when I was 16, I got on this new medicine, which I still take
Mm.
to this day. Every like it's like an infusion, and so I've been in remission now for 17 years, like
Wow.
total remission, like I mean complete remission. And my doctor tells me I'm like his miracle patient, which is cool. But when I really wanted to like I want to get this, I want to let people know about this, is because I thought back when I was a kid and I was so into sports. I remember being like in hospitals, and like I would be like Googling like pro athletes that have Crohn's, like for some sort of
Mm.
inspiration. And oddly enough, the one that would always come up was David Gerard, who used to be the quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay.
Which is funny how it kind of comes full
Yeah.
circle, because now the Cons own the Jaguars. And now I live in Jacksonville. I see him in town all the time. He goes to the same gym as me, goes to the same barber shops. I'm like, man, that's crazy. But so I want to get my story out there because it's not a super uncommon thing. And
Yeah.
so I think if there's some like kid out there struggling with it, and like, man, like, can I still like do what I want to do in life? Now that if they want to be a pro wrestler, oh well, he has it, he did it, so I can do it
Mm.
too. So it's more like, and that was honestly, I hate that I have it because it was a
Mm.
struggle growing up, but it put a fucking major chip on my shoulder,
Mm.
and I don't think I would be a pro wrestler if I didn't have it. And I think I may have like kind of skated by through life, but I didn't want to prove anybody wrong, but I wanted to prove to
Mm,
myself like you can still do what you always wanted to do. So it's one of those things where it's like I almost got into pro wrestling not for like money or to be on TV, but to
mm,
like inspire the 10-year-old version of myself. Because I know there's some other kid out there who's going through the same shit, if not worse, you know?
mm.
So that's like I hate that I have it, but it's almost like a blessing in disguise. Whereas I go back to everything does happen for a reason, and I think that really made me have like a lot of work ethic and put a really big chip on my shoulder.
Definitely, that's hugely impressive, man. So you definitely would be. The more people kind of listen to these kind of stories, the more inspired they'll be. Like I think the last number of years, obviously off the back of COVID and whatnot, like people awareness around like autoimmune conditions and things like that. People are a lot more
Mhm.
open about them. Whereas like
Yeah.
you and I are of a similar age. Whereas like I had autoimmune issues growing up as well, but
Mhm.
like, just different. Obviously, not to the same extent, but it's the type of thing you'd keep hidden. You wouldn't tell your friends, you wouldn't tell in school. Whereas
Mhm.
nowadays, like these things are kind of they're almost common. They're kind of out in the open. Like
Yeah.
I've people I went to school with that I know now have Crohn's disease or other issues. But
Yeah.
again, we kind of come from a time we don't really talk about these things, and that applies to various different kind of health related issues. So no, listen, well done. That's really really cool of you, and to kind of be so
Thank you.
open and transparent about it. But listen, before we go, like, can I ask you like what kind of projects do you have in the horizon? You've obviously got your social media stuff. You're featuring on Ring of Honor week in, week out. You've gone back to the Independence with the Frat House. You just appeared in Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. I'm sure you've got a number of different dates in the horizon. Where can people find you online in terms of your projects? Where can they find you across social media?
Instagram is Preston Vance, Pres10 Vance, and that's same for Twitter. Facebook is more like family, but I do have one. It's just my real name, Cody Vance. And then I also been trying to, and I haven't been great about it, but trying to transfer all my Instagram videos also to TikTok as well, which is also same handle as Instagram. So I'm really diving into the social media thing big time, and I'm hoping it's going to be a big snowball effect, and this will be a good year and a very fun year.
Good man. I'm sure you got a load of weirdos add you on Facebook now in your shoot Facebook profile. So
I don't care.
yeah, it's fine. Well, they're all welcome. I'm not somebody who's able to navigate TikTok, so you better you than me anyway. But listen, Preston, thank you so much for all your time. I really do appreciate it. I can't wait to see what happens for 2025 for you and the guys.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
No problem.